Hi, my name is Anna, and I'm 27 years old. If you are watching this right now, drop a comment letting me know where you are viewing from. Before I tell you about this life-changing decision, hit like and subscribe to hear more real stories. This is the story of how I inherited $26 million after my grandparents passed away, and how my own parents demanded it from me when I refused to hand it over. Losing my grandparents was one of the hardest things I've ever faced in my life. They weren't just family, they were my safe place, my biggest supporters, and the people who always believed in me. Growing up, I spent more time in their home than my own, because with them, I felt seen and loved. When they passed away, it felt like a part of me was gone too. I wasn't thinking about money, property, or anything else at that moment. All I could think about was how empty life suddenly felt without their voices, their advice, and their hugs. I remember standing at their funerals surrounded by family, but feeling completely alone. What I didn't know then was that their loss was just the beginning of a storm that would change everything about my life, my family, and even the way I saw love and trust. A few weeks after the funeral, I got a call that completely caught me off guard. It was from my grandparents' lawyer. At first, I thought it was just about some paperwork or maybe closing accounts, but his words made my heart stop. He said, "Anna, your grandparents left something for you. I think you should come to the office." I remember sitting there in silence, confused, even a little nervous. Why me? My parents, my uncles, my aunts, they were all older, more experienced. But for some reason, the lawyer wanted to meet with me alone. That night, I barely slept. My mind kept racing. What could it possibly be? I never imagined that this phone call was the beginning of the biggest test of my life. When I walked into the lawyer's office, I was nervous. My hands were literally shaking. He asked me to sit down, and then he opened a thick folder with my grandparents' names on it. I'll never forget his words. He said, "Anna, your grandparents have left their entire estate to you." I blinked at him, not even understanding what he meant. Estate? What estate? And then he explained. Properties, investments, savings, all of it. The total was $26 million. I just sat there in shock. Me? Why me? I felt like I couldn't breathe. That kind of money was something I had only seen in movies. I didn't feel excited. I felt scared. Because deep down, I knew. This was going to change everything. After I left the lawyer's office, my heart was racing. Part of me wanted to keep it a secret, at least for a while. But these were my parents. How could I hide something so big from them? That evening, I sat down with them at the dinner table and told them everything. I said, "Mom, Dad, the lawyer called me today. Grandma and Grandpa left their estate to me. It's a lot of money." At first, they just stared at me, almost like they didn't believe it. My mom's fork dropped on her plate, and my dad leaned back in his chair, completely silent. Then my dad finally said, "How much are we talking about?" When I whispered the number, 26 million, the room went quiet. The air felt heavy, and I knew in that moment, things would never be the same again. The silence at the dinner table didn't last long. After a few seconds, my dad leaned forward and said, "Anna, you know that money isn't really yours. It belongs to the family." I was stunned. I had just told them the biggest news of my life, and instead of being happy for me, they looked angry. My mom added, "Your grandparents must have meant for us to handle it. You're too young to manage something that big." I tried to explain that the lawyer had been clear. The inheritance was left to me, not them, but they didn't want to hear it. My dad's voice got sharper. He said, "We raised you. We sacrificed for you. Now it's your turn to give back. Transfer the money to us, and we'll decide what's best." In that moment, I felt something break inside me. I had always trusted my parents, but now I wasn't sure if they saw me as their daughter anymore, or just as a bank account. Word spread faster than I ever imagined. Within days, my uncles, aunts, and even cousins started calling me. At first, it sounded polite. "Congratulations, Anna, you're so lucky." But the tone quickly changed. Some said, "You should share it with the family." Others hinted that I didn't deserve it because I was young and unmarried. One cousin even joked, "Don't forget who your real family is when you're rich." But it didn't feel like a joke at all. Every phone call, every visit felt like a trap. People I grew up with were suddenly treating me like I was some kind of walking ATM. It was overwhelming. Instead of mourning my grandparents, I was defending myself from people I once loved and trusted. I started realizing the inheritance wasn't just money, it was a spotlight, and everyone wanted a piece of it. The pressure didn't stop with phone calls. My parents started using guilt to break me down. My mom would say things like, "Anna, we gave you everything. Without us, you wouldn't even be here." My dad reminded me of every sacrifice they had ever made. How he worked late nights, how my mom stayed home to raise me. It felt less like love, and more like a debt I apparently owed them. They told me I was being selfish, that money should stay with the family, and if I truly cared about them, I would hand it over. Sometimes my mom even cried, saying, "We're not asking, we're telling you what's right." And that hurt the most. Because all my life, I wanted to make them proud. But now, it felt like their love came with a price tag. And that price was $26 million. After all the arguments and pressure, nights became the hardest for me. I would lie in bed staring at the ceiling, my mind racing. I replayed every conversation with my parents, every call from relatives, and every guilt-filled word they had thrown at me. Instead of feeling grateful for the inheritance, I felt trapped by it. My chest was heavy, my stomach twisted, and sleep just wouldn't come. Sometimes I would sit up at 3 a.m, wondering if giving them the money would just make the noise stop. But then another thought hit me. If I gave it away, I would lose the only chance my grandparents wanted me to have. They trusted me with their life's work, and if I handed it over, I'd be betraying them. That thought hurt even more. So every night I fought a battle in my own head, between keeping peace in the family and honoring the people who truly loved me. One evening, when I couldn't take the stress anymore, I went to my grandparents' old house. Walking through the rooms felt strange. Their pictures on the walls, their favorite chair still in the corner, almost like they were still there. I went into my grandma's room and opened her old wooden dresser. Inside, under a stack of scarves, I found a sealed envelope with my name on it. My hands shook as I opened it. It was a letter, written in her handwriting. She wrote, "Anna, if you are reading this, it means we are no longer with you. Please know that everything we leave behind is yours because we believe in you. We watched how you cared for us, how you stood by us when no one else did. That's why we chose you. Use this gift to build your future, not to please others." Tears filled my eyes. For the first time since the inheritance, I felt peace. My grandparents had chosen me. For a reason. After reading my grandmother's letter, something inside me changed. For weeks, I had been drowning in guilt, questioning myself, and almost giving in to my parents' pressure. But now, her words gave me strength. She trusted me. She believed in me. And I realized, if I gave the money away just to keep everyone happy, I would be going against her final wish. The next morning, I sat down with my parents again. My voice was shaking, but I spoke clearly. I said, "Mom, Dad, I love you. But this inheritance was left to me, and I need to honor Grandma and Grandpa's decision. I'm not giving it away." My dad's face turned red with anger. My mom looked hurt, almost betrayed. But for the first time, I didn't back down. I drew a line. I wasn't just their daughter anymore. I was someone standing up for herself. It was the hardest thing I've ever done, but also the moment I started taking my life back. I thought drawing the line would end the pressure, but I was wrong. Instead, it only made things worse. A week later, I overheard my parents talking in the living room. They weren't whispering about how to support me or how to heal our family. They were talking about lawyers. My dad said, "If she won't give it willingly, we'll take it legally." My heart sank. These were my parents, the people who raised me, the people I trusted most, planning to drag me into court like I was a stranger. That night, I cried harder than ever. It wasn't just about money anymore, it was about betrayal. The people who were supposed to protect me were ready to fight against me for something my grandparents had left out of love. That cut deeper than any insult, any argument, any guilt trip. In that moment, I realized the inheritance didn't just change my life, it revealed who my parents truly were. At that point, I felt like the whole world was against me. My parents were planning legal action, relatives were circling me like vultures, and every phone call felt like another demand. I was exhausted. I started to believe maybe I really was alone in this, but then something unexpected happened. One of my closest friends, Sarah, showed up at my apartment. She didn't ask for money. She didn't judge me. She just brought coffee, sat down, and said, "Anna, you don't have to go through this by yourself." For the first time in weeks, I felt safe enough to cry in front of someone. I told her everything, the pressure, the guilt, even the letter from my grandmother. And instead of telling me what to do, she reminded me of something I had forgotten. This inheritance was a gift of love, not a curse. She said, "If your grandparents trusted you, then you have to trust yourself too." Those words lit a spark inside me. For the first time in weeks, I didn't feel weak. I felt strong again. After finding strength in Sarah's words, I started seeing things differently. But the pressure from my family didn't stop. It only grew louder. Some relatives sent long messages, warning me that I was tearing the family apart. Others accused me of being greedy, saying, "Money has changed you, Anna." But what they didn't see was that it wasn't me who had changed. It was them. People I had shared birthdays, holidays, and memories with were suddenly keeping their distance unless the topic was the inheritance. It hurt more than I can explain. But not everyone turned against me. A few cousins quietly reached out and said they understood, even admired me for standing firm. That meant the world to me, but it also highlighted the truth. My family was splitting right down the middle. On one side were those who saw me as their golden ticket, and on the other, a smaller group who still saw me as Anna, the girl they grew up with. That divide was painful, but it also made me realize I couldn't fix everyone. I had to protect myself. The weeks that followed were some of the hardest of my life. Everywhere I turned, there seemed to be tension. My phone would buzz with messages from relatives, my parents would show up at my apartment unannounced, and every conversation circled back to one thing: money. For a while, I felt like I was shrinking under the weight of it all. But slowly, something inside me began to change. Instead of crying every night, I started journaling. Instead of avoiding phone calls, I learned to say one powerful word: no. And each time I said it, I felt a little stronger. I also began to focus on what my grandparents really wanted for me. They hadn't left me this inheritance to feel miserable or guilty. They wanted me to live, to build a life that mattered. Remembering that gave me courage. For the first time in my life, I wasn't just reacting to pressure, I was setting boundaries. And in those boundaries, I started to find my strength. Standing at the end of this journey, I finally understand something. Money doesn't just change your life, it shows you who people really are. I lost the version of my parents I thought I knew. I saw relatives turn into strangers and strangers turn into beggars. But I also discovered something far more important. I found myself. For the first time in my life, I learned how to say no without guilt, how to protect what's mine, and how to honor the people who truly loved me. I've decided not to waste my grandparents' gift on winning approval from those who only see dollar signs. Instead, I'm investing in my future, education, a home of my own, and maybe one day a family that values love over money. This inheritance wasn't just about $26 million. It was about trust, love, and responsibility. And in choosing to stand my ground, I'm choosing the life my grandparents wanted for me, the life I want for myself.